Hey everybody, John Granato and Zierlein from the bench. Mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe so you get all of our content here at SportsMap HOU. Lance, ESPN's Jonathan Givony reported this week that the Rockets have been in contact with the Pistons about the top pick. To this point, it's a consensus. It is Cade Cunningham. But last week we heard from The Athletic that Detroit could take Jalen Green instead. If the Rockets are inquiring about the number one pick, they may have value on one player over the other. You think it's Green or Cunningham?
Well, I think what's happened now is I think, and I know this from playing the NFL draft game and the NFL mocks and NFL, it's straight out of that model. All of a sudden, Detroit, who's got the top pick, you try to find out who the other team has. Think back to the Chicago Bears with Mitchell Trubisky and what San Francisco did to them, where San Francisco conned them into giving up extra picks so that they could move up and get Trubisky, a player who San Francisco was never going to draft anyway. I think this could be the case with Detroit. I think Detroit would love to have Cade Cunningham, but if the Rockets have fallen in love potentially with a guy like Jalen Green, then maybe Detroit could play a little game, especially if they like two players equally, where they say, hey, Rockets, we'll give you your chance to get whoever you want, and we'll move down one space as long as you give up, your additional 2 first-round picks that you have. So I think Detroit could be gaming Houston here. Obviously, Houston has a preference of who they would like, but maybe that preference isn't between Evan Mobley and Jalen Green. Maybe they want in on the Cade Cunningham selection, and maybe they're willing to give up those picks for Cade.
Yeah, the only way I think the Rockets would do it is if they covet Cade Cunningham so much.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's a Jalen Green. We have to have Jalen Green, so we're moving up to number one. If Detroit takes Jalen Green and you get stuck with Cade Cunningham, the consensus around the NBA is that Cade Cunningham is going to be, and Cade Cunningham would fit in here perfectly.
Yeah, but if Detroit likes the potential of Jalen Green, there's no reason for them not to try to move, and they don't want to move back. I mean, that would be the perfect trade partner for them going 1 to 2, because they would still get a guy that they like. If they don't value Cade Cunningham as a clear-cut number one, then why not move back a spot and get the Rockets additional picks? If you're the Rockets, you look at that, if this were the NFL draft, we're so conditioned to saying no way you would give up 2 additional first-round picks. But in basketball, 2 picks in the 20s, they just don't have, the value of that versus the value of getting the clear-cut best player in the draft, if the Rockets feel that way about, whatever the top pick would be, whoever that would be. I don't know that 2 additional first-rounders, it sounds devastating for a team to do that in the NFL, but in the NBA, there's not as much value in the 20s. That's just
the Rockets have number 2, number 23, and 24, and I agree, but it could be, you never know. You could find a Siakam, or
sure,
you could find a Kawhi. It's 18 and 19, 21, whatever they were. But you never know at 23 and 24 what diamond in the rough you're going to get. Usually in the NBA, 23 and 24 aren't all that valuable. It's much more valuable in the NFL. But in this case, this is a good draft. And you never know who's going to fall or that you could be in love with at that spot.
I think the difference is, I don't know that a lot of teams want to be on the hook for those contracts, for guaranteed contracts over a certain amount of years for that many players. Now, the Rockets are in a rare position, and it's not a good one, where they need to rebuild much of their roster. So they could fade having 3 rookie contracts because, frankly, they need the players, and then the ability to stash a player in the G League, or maybe even overseas, drafting a player who has overseas ties. That's still on the table too. But I think it is interesting that there is talk about moving out of number 1. We hear it happen all the time in the NFL where it gets floated out there. Could Jacksonville Jaguars be potentially interested in trading that pick? Whoever has the number 1 pick in any sport, they love the idea of at least floating it out there just to see if anyone's willing to give up the crazy RG3 type deals, even though he wasn't the first pick, or the Ricky Williams pick, draft, or who's willing to give up something so ridiculous that they have to really consider it strongly. I think ultimately Rockets draft second.
Yeah, and I think ultimately Detroit takes Cade Cunningham with number 1.